Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Wang Muren carried the fishing elder's corpse and placed it on the back of the buck. He rode the buck and caught up with Qin Mu, Imperial Preceptor, and the rest while shouting, "Imperial Preceptor, I'll take revenge for my master." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned his head back and looked very serious. "Your master's skill ain't bad. After you have mastered them, pass down the abilities to your own disciples and don't let his abilities die away." Wang Muren gave a shout and clouds formed below the buck's feet as it sprinted into the sky, gradually disappearing. Someone invited this old softy from Little Jade Capital to test the waters, therefore he certainly deserves his death. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor retracted his gaze and said to Qin Mu and the rest, "Little Jade Capital is a mysterious place that stands aloof from worldly affairs. They have an extremely ancient background. Even I only heard rumors about Little Jade Capital before, and it was my first time meeting an expert of Little Jade Capital. They indeed have some means, but they are behind times. They do not come out frequently and couldn't witness the advancement in the techniques of other sects. It's easy to fall behind times by limiting themselves in a closed environment. Bear in mind, you can never be an expert if you only concentrate on cultivating without having regard for what is happening in the outside world." Qin Mu and the rest nodded their heads in acknowledgement and felt respect in their hearts. This fishing elder was actually invited by others to test the waters? Are they using this elder's life to test how deep the water of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was? This struggle has already begun. Qin Mu's gaze wavered as he thought to himself. Li City. Eternal Peace Empire's army had already invaded this place, and when they came, the battle had already ended. The battle shouldn't be too intense. Qin Mu looked around and saw the city walls were still considered complete. The army of Eternal Peace had directly pushed forward and met the rebel army outside the city, eradicating them straight away. There are Hall of Array Element, floor of military secrets in Imperial College where they taught formation skills and the art of war. With the sects facing the army of Eternal Peace directly, their end is evident, he thought secretly to himself. Li City wasn't destroyed by the battles, therefore, the people here were still considered safe. Qin Mu came to the herb shop and grabbed a few herbs from each and every herb shop. After visiting about a dozen herb shops, almost half a day had passed by and night fell. Qin Mu and the rest stayed at the Yamen of Li City. The magistrate of Li City had been captured and sent under escort to the imperial court. Not long after, a fragrant medicinal smell came out from the Yamen, and about an hour later, a maid carried a basin out and poured the basin of medicinal dregs on the stone pavement. Another hour later, that maid carried out another basin of medicinal dregs and poured it on the pavement, letting people to trample on them. That happened a third time, and 7 basins of medicinal dregs were poured in one night. After daybreak, Qin Mu and the rest didn't start out to the south until half a day had passed. In the herb shop of Li City, there was a middle-aged scholar in green clothing and white inner shirt standing behind the counter. He flipped through dozens of prescriptions, and these prescriptions recorded the few herbs Qin Mu had grabbed from the dozen of herb shops. That's not right. These herbs are completely useless. These herbs aren't for healing injuries. This brat is shrewd. The middle-aged scholar raised his head and smiled, as expected of the little divine physician that's well known in the capital city. You don't want me to know from the herbs how serious Imperial Preceptor's injury is. How sly. However, you're underestimating me, Spiritual Master Dao Quan. Spiritual Master, here are the medicinal dregs. A few young apothecaries came from outside, and each of them carried a basin which was filled with medicinal dregs. Spiritual Master Dao Quan checked them one by one. After a moment, he calculated to himself, this little divine physician is indeed shrewd. He purposely mixed other medicinal dregs in so that I can't see how Imperial Preceptor was treated. However, to play this kind of tricks in front of me, you're still too inexperienced. Disciples, grab the herbs. He said the names of the herbs, and the young apothecaries immediately fetched the spirit herbs over. Spiritual Master Dao Quan muttered to himself and organized them into categories. He changed the arrangement a few more times and ordered his disciples to start the furnace to refine the herbs when he felt that there was no mistake. After a few hours, spiritual master Dao Quan looked at the medicine he had refined. The first medicine was a herbal soup which was incomparably intense. The second one was a medicinal ointment for applying externally to dispel poison. The third one was a spirit pill that was the size of the tip of a pinky finger. The pill was silver in color and filled with spikes. With just a gentle touch, one would be pricked by the gold chi coming out from the spirit pill. The fourth medicine was a milky white gas that had settled down on the bottom of the furnace. The fifth medicine was a cup of dark red liquid which evaporated very fast. The sixth and seventh medicines were also spirit pills, but their medicinal properties were different. Spiritual Master Dao Quan checked the 7 medicines and his expression changed slightly as he exclaimed in admiration, "This little divine physician is remarkable, truly remarkable." With his method of healing, all injuries of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor would be completely healed over in the shortest time of 20 days, or no more than half a year. He brought 7 medicines and instantly leaped into the air, turning into a trail of light in the sky. This trail of light flew for half a day towards the southern borders and landed in Dali City of the southern borders after 1,000 miles. Dali City was the biggest city in the southern borders. This place was a country back then which advocated the Buddhist doctrine. There were at least 3,600 temples within the county, having the reputation of the Western Paradise in the south. It was later annexed by Eternal Peace. Spiritual Master Dao Quan landed in the most glorious Luoguang Temple and walked quickly into the temple. There were about a dozen existences of the cult master level in the temple. They all rose up. Spiritual Master Dao Quan is here. The man who wore a bronze mask welcomed him and smiled. Spiritual Master Dao Quan must have brought us good news this time. You're right. Spiritual Master Dao Quan took out 7 kinds of medicines and placed them in a line. This time Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had competed with Wanderishan of Little Jade Capital. Even though he had killed Wanderishan, he must have gotten injured as well. Having Little Divine Physician beside him on this journey, I had thought the Little Divine Physician would help treat him, therefore, the medicine used would reveal the state of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's injuries. These 7 medicines were the medicine Little Divine Physician had refined last night. May everyone have a look. High Official Ma Lianshan asked in astonishment. Spiritual Master Dao Quan normally doesn't give in to heaven nor earth and believes he is the #1 in the art of healing, and even Little Poison King has to flatter you. How come you're calling a little brat divine physician today? Spiritual Master Dao Quan said solemnly, in the past, I viewed highly of myself because no one could be compared to me in terms of medical knowledge. They were just quacks that knew some prescriptions, that's all. Even Little Poison King had merely inherited Jade Face Poison King's abilities and didn't have any contributions on his own. Furthermore, I despise his character. Someone who would even betray his master makes me hold him in contempt. However, this little divine physician is indeed worthy of his title. He pointed at the first medicine and said, this is the herbal soup the little divine physician brewed using dozens of herbs. Just the poisonous herbs alone take up more than half of the soup. This herbal soup help in stimulating the soul and cure the injuries on the soul. Is Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's soul injured? An old man panted, is indeed injured. I had used my pure Yang 36 heavenly spirit star fiends to injure his soul, but he had also injured me. Spiritual Master Dao Quan said, this herbal soup is to treat the injury of his soul, which exactly what he needed. The second medicine is an ointment. Does Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor has an external injury which carries fire poison? Another old woman grinned. Spiritual Master is very accurate. There is fire poison hidden in my technique. When we ambushed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor then, I had managed to land a hit on the back of his heart. Little Divine Physician's ointment helps in getting rid of the fire poison. Spiritual Master Dao Quan pointed at the third medicine. There is gold chi hidden in this spirit pill which is extremely sharp. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor should have suffered from some venomous insect or wood poison. Who used wood poison or venomous insect when injuring Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor that day? Another elder chuckled. When we 3 ambushed Imperial Preceptor then, I used venomous insects. Then that's it. Spiritual Master Dao Quan continued, the fourth medicine is for steaming technique. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor has injuries in his 7 great divine treasures, thus it's hard for the medicinal properties to infiltrate, therefore this little divine physician turned the medicinal energy into gas, steaming Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor in the steamer. The cult masters in Luoguang Temple smiled, why didn't he get cooked by steaming? Other than that, there are still some hidden dangers not written off, therefore, this little divine physician then used acupuncture and moxibustion. Those needles are hollow and the 5th medicine is hidden in the needles. This medicine evaporates very fast and will seep into his skin after entering his body. Spiritual Master Dao Quan pointed to the 6th medicine and said, this medicine is used to strengthen the body, to strengthen the effect of this treatment. The 7th medicine is a supplement which is used to nourish Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's body. After this test, I can already confirm without a doubt that Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor has yet recovered. He gave an exclaim of admiration and continued, however, giving this little divine physician a month's time, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor would be nursed back to his peak performance and all his injuries would be healed without any hidden danger left behind. The Palace Master of Passion Parting Palace frowned as she said softly, everyone, Imperial Preceptor's injuries seem to be more serious than we expected. That man wearing the bronze mask smiled, that's because he met Wanderishan of Little Jade Capital. I had known Wanderishan back in the days and had close connections with him. It's just that after he had gone to Little Jade Capital, we had lesser dealings with each other. Wanderishan is also at the peak of Divine Bridge Realm and not much inferior compared to Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Spiritual Master Dao Quan said, Wanderishan of Little Jade Capital has already died. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor killed him. I felt the pulses coming from the mountain when I was at Lee City. Passion Parting Palace Master's gaze landed on the man with the bronze mask, seemingly wanting to know whose face it was underneath the mask. You made use of your friendship with Wanderishan from the early days to send him to his death, aren't you too scheming? Ever since I met you, you have been always wearing a mask and don't dare to show your face. You betrayed your friend and hide your identity, this makes me very worried. If I'm betrayed by you, I'm afraid I won't even know who betrayed me. Palace Master Chio, you can be at ease, there is definitely nothing going wrong with him. Passion Parting Palace Master Chio Jie looked towards the source of the sound and saw the person speaking was one of the 3 wonders of 3 Wonders Castle, Big Castle Lord Che Zhengli, the father of Imperial Consort Che in the capital city. After he had rebelled, Imperial Consort Che was implicated by him and now it wasn't known if she was dead or alive in the cold palace. Passion Parting Palace Master said indifferently, really no problem. Just because you said so? Castle Lord Che, don't forget you're also a relative of the royal family. Che Zhengli's expression changed slightly and was about to say something when an old woman laughed. Palace Master, there is no problem with this person's identity. The old woman who spoke this was one of the 3 strong practitioners of the old generation that had ambushed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Since that she had said no problem, Passion Parting Palace Master could only restrain herself. Since Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor is still suffering from his serious injuries, should we give him time to recuperate? The bronze mask man looked around and asked. He ordered He Xiaopeng to come over and gave us 2 choices. It's time for us to make a decision. Which choice should we choose? The temple was in silence. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor came aggressively. He brought 4 out of 8 pillar of states and there are still Grand General who crowns the army, Grand General of Cherishing Transformation, Duke Wei, and even a few first-ranking high officials among them. If we face them directly, we definitely can't win. High official Ma Lianshan said, pardon my straightforwardness, Sex will definitely win the battle of the martial world, but Eternal Peace Empire is a level higher in fighting wars on the battlefield. In that case, why should we take our shortcoming to fight their strength? Why not take our strength to fight their shortcoming? Everyone nodded his head. Passion Parting Palace Master suddenly said, this reminds me of the battle 200 years ago. Back then there were a lot of strong practitioners of the battle technique school with a variety of cultivations. It was able to compete with the sword control school and the spell school. At that time, the battle technique school fought the sword control school and the spell school to the death every day, and how brash were they then? But now, look at our battle technique school again, where are the experts? Where have they gone? Everyone fell silent. The experts of the battle technique school had mostly died in a debate with Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. From then on, the battle technique school was ruined with a stumble. In the recent years, the battle technique school had already started to merge with other schools, and there were rarely people who purely cultivated battle techniques. In that debate, the battle technique school was crippled with just Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor alone. Passion Parting Palace Master said indifferently, "What's the difference between the situation now and then?" At that time the battle technique school thought they were the #1 in the world and would completely crush Sword Control School in this debate. Therefore many strong practitioners of the battle technique school went forth to the capital city to challenge Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. What happened next? She looked around. If we go according to the rules of the martial world with Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, won't we end up like them? The bronze masked man was silent for a moment before asking, "What brilliant idea does Palace Master Chio have?" Passion Parting Palace Master raised her hand and replied, "Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor thinks we are going to fight him according to the rules of the martial world, but we actually won't follow the rules of the martial world. We will first give him a location, and when he reaches, we will all go forth and end this by killing him." Her palm sliced down as she said coldly, "Eternal Peace Empire was merely a small country, and for them to be able to have what they have today, most of the effort lies on Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. He is already a legend that is revered by the civil and military officials in the Imperial Court. If he wants to rebel, he just needs to raise an arm and the Emperor would have to give up his throne. If the Emperor doesn't give up his throne, he will be slain and his entire family would be exterminated. If Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor dies, Eternal Peace Empire won't be hard to deal with when they have no leader, therefore we must resort to unscrupulous means. We can't go by the rules of the martial world. This Palace Master Chio is right. All the sect masters in Luoguang Temple agreed. Only a few of them felt uncomfortable going against the rules of the martial world, but they didn't oppose it. Attacking Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor altogether and the 3 elders ambushing Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor the previous time was 2 different matters. When the 3 elders ambushed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor back then, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was situated in an army of 10,000 men, having countless strong practitioners beside him, thus the 3 elders didn't break any rule of the martial world. Whereas this time, they were actually tearing apart the rules of the martial world and trampling on it. With this action, the rules will be broken, leaving behind a disaster that would go down in history. Spiritual Master Dao Quan shook his head secretly. They had brought the unruly fighting method of the Imperial Court to the martial world. I'm afraid we can't go back to the martial world in the past. Sunlight City, Qin Mu followed a set pattern and treated Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor again. When they reached Mountain City, he treated him once more. All the troops advanced together and had already reached the front of Dashang, invading city and taking over the territory, sweeping everything in front of them. There were many bodies of water in the south, but there was no moat like surging river, therefore, it was hard for them to defend against Eternal Peace Empire's army. Qin Mu helped Eternal Peace Empire greatly by summoning Jutian Devil King to destroy Heaven Wave City, a strategic location built on such moat. However, he couldn't take credit for it. On the 5th day, Qin Mu and the rest came to Exceed City, and Exceed City had also been taken over. Just as they entered the city, they saw a beggar wearing ragged clothes that were covered in patches holding a broken bowl and supporting himself with a cane. When he came to them, Monk Yun Q felt in his pocket to see if he had any spare change. Hu Linger took out a great abundance coin and handed it over to Yun Q. Yun Q expressed his thanks and placed it in the bowl of the old beggar. That old beggar shook his bowl and the coin inside rattled as he grinned. "You are all kind people, you will have many children and great prosperity. Imperial Preceptor, may I bother you to head over to Dashang? In Dashang City, the second choice, the heroes of this world will meet Imperial Preceptor there, we'll wait for your arrival." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gave him a glance and said indifferently, "Why can't you guys wait a few more days? If you wait a few more days, my army will be able to descend on Dali and meet the so-called heroes of this world in Dali, throwing their bodies into the southern sea to feed the fishes, saving us the trouble to bury them. Isn't it better?" That old beggar laughed out loud, and there were actually 7 continuous sounds of gates opening from his body. His aura rose dramatically and his cultivation was incomparably dense. His spirit was like a god that looked disdainfully at all living things. It was a spirit that didn't seem like he was only surviving because of people giving alms and was like a god that was worshipped by all living things. Imperial Preceptor is heroic as usual, Dashang City, I'll wait for your arrival. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly heard a voice, hold it. The old beggar squatted down and turned his head back to look at Qin Mu with a puzzled face. Without a change in expression, Qin Mu said softly, Linger, take back the money. He is much richer than us. Hu Linger immediately went forward and took out that great abundance coin from the broken bowl. The old beggar immediately flew into fury. You have the face to take back the alms you have given to a beggar? You're impotent. Impotent? Smelly beggar, scolding us? Hu Linger turned her head back and asked, Young master, what's impotent? Qin Mu said, Impotent means you can't bear any child. He's really scolding us. Hu Linger flew into a fury and spat at the old beggar's face. That old beggar didn't avoid it and just chuckled, Little fox, you're dead meat for provoking me. After he had finished, he broke through the air in an instant. Hu Linger spat, How dare you scold and curse me after scamming my money, you're impotent. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, You need to be more careful, that's Sect Master Chi Dayo of Beggar Sect. Beggar Sect is usually petty and proficient in evil arts. If no alms were given, they would create a ruckus in front of shops or use evil arts to harm people. After spoiling people's business, they will even scold you behind your back and even steal other people's daughters and sons to sell. There is a beggar hall in Heavenly Devil cult which fought them quite a few times. Beggar hall only asked for food and did lesser evils, however, they were framed quite a lot by Beggar Sect. Qin Mu blinked his eyes and smiled, Imperial Preceptor, we're not much further from Dashang and it's enough for us to send you here. We should be returning to Imperial College. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor replied expressionlessly, No, you must follow me to Dashang. Qin Mu got a headache. When everyone had settled down, he went out by himself and came to a gambling den in Exceed City. He found the den owner and ordered, Pass down my command, let the 360 halls of our sacred cult come forth using their teleportation flags. Hold it. Sai Yunxiang's voice came from behind Qin Mu. Qin Mu turned back to look and saw Sai Yunxiang walking over. Her shyness in the past had disappeared with a trace as she said coldly, Sacred Cult Master, if you do so, you will drag our sacred cult into danger as well. If our sacred cult has any mishap, who will be responsible? Qin Mu turned his body around and said indifferently, Saintess, I'm the cult master. Sai Yunxiang smiled sweetly, Saintess Sai Yunxiang pays my respect to cult master. Her face turned cold, if cult master lets our sacred cult help Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, no matter if Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor wins or loses, our sacred cult would lose all our reputation in the martial world. We will get ridiculed and viewed as an enemy by other sects. We will have no footing in this world. Qin Mu shook his head, the sacred cult is already Heavenly Devil cult, so what reputation do we have? People will not give you a footing, we have to fight for it ourselves. This is a rare opportunity and if the sacred cult doesn't partake, we will really have no footing. Sai Yunxiang protested, what if Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor lay his hand on our Heavenly Saint cult after he had dealt with all the sects in this world? Can you take responsibility for that? Qin Mu took a glance at her, I'll take responsibility. Sai Yunxiang's expression changed again and she suddenly smiled lightly, you're the cult master, so it's natural you make the decision. Sai Yunxiang won't say any more. However, if Sacred Cult Master makes a wrong move and lets our sacred cult fall into danger, maybe Cult Master may be the second Sacred Cult Master that got killed by the Saintess. Qin Mu frowned. The Sacred Cult Master of Heavenly Devil was really a dangerous position which could be killed any moment because of a misconduct. Sai Yunxiang said shyly, the previous Cult Master died from being lecherous and the current Cult Master got beaten to death alive by the Saintess, the reputation of both of them doesn't seem nice. Qin Mu shook his head and waved his hand, Saintess, you may fall back. Pass down my command, all 360 Hall Masters to come forth at once using teleportation flags. Also invite the two Guardians as well. The gambling den owner bowed, as Cult Master command. Qin Mu walked out of the gambling den and Cai Yunxiang was standing outside it. When she saw him walking out, she snickered, beaten to death alive. Qin Mu stared at her and walked forward. "Are you following or not?" Cai Yunxiang caught up with him and rolled her eyes. "Does Cult Master want to place great educational heavenly devil scriptures in the cult first, in case it goes missing after Cult Master dies?" Qin Mu stopped in his footsteps and turned around, speaking in a serious tone. "Sister, you aren't my opponent. If my judgment is wrong, your coming to kill me will only result in being killed by me. You." He used vital chi to draw a triangle in the sky, and then to draw a straight line in the middle. "This is you." He then drew another straight line. "This is me. No matter how wide your angle is, your line won't be as long as mine." The sword case behind Cai Yunxiang stirred and tinkling noises came from inside as she smiled sweetly. "How will we know if we never try?" Qin Mu placed both his hands behind his back as he walked forward. "There's no need to try. On the same realm, no one is my opponent, not you, not even Imperial Preceptor." He stopped in his footsteps and looked towards the sky with a hint of loneliness. "I'm the Overlord body." Qin Mu lowered his head and sighed. "The only Overlord body in the world." Cai Yunxiang was stunned and wanted to make a move, yet she was shaken by his imposing manner. It was an aura of loneliness from being invincible. Overlord body? What kind of constitution is that? Is it stronger than the 4 great spirit bodies? She thought to herself, could Patriarch choose him as the cult master and not me because he is the Overlord body? Cai Yunxiang composed herself and raised her eyes to look at Qin Mu, who had walked far away. "I will not be weaker than the so-called Overlord body. The women of our Cai family are natural-born cult master killers. If the saintless of the previous generation could kill the previous cult master, I can do it too." They arrived at Flood County the next day, and Flood County had already been taken over for 2 days. When a soldier saw Imperial Preceptor, he immediately reported, "Imperial Preceptor, there are many people carrying flags that had arrived in the city." People carrying flags. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and mumbled for a moment while looking at Qin Mu. He then said, "Ignore them." "How many of them are there exactly?" "About a dozen. They all wear bamboo hats to cover their faces, and they have different weapons on them that are wrapped tightly with a cloth. They don't look like good guys. You may fall back." On the 3rd day, they came to Clear River County, and there were also many people carrying flags that came to Clear River County. There were about 50 to 60 people, much more than yesterday. On the 4th day in Hidden Fog City, a few hundred people carrying flags appeared in the city. Qin Mu didn't explain where these people came from and why they came here. An Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor didn't ask about it. On the 5th day, they walked out of the official's manor and prepared to head to Dashang. Just as they walked out of the yamen and came onto the street, they saw a weird person, who was wearing a bamboo hat and carrying weapons wrapped with cloth, stand up from the gate of the yamen, following behind them. Another 2 steps forwards, another person walked out from the alley beside them. The person was also wearing a bamboo hat which was pushed down. On his hand was a weapon wrapped with a cloth. Another burly man wearing a bamboo hat beside the street also stood up and carried a cloth sack to follow them. Before they even walked out of Hidden Fog City, there were a few hundred weird people who were dressed similarly following them. There were males, females, young and old. Chen Wanyun, Yu Qinghong and the rest turned back to have a look and felt uneasy. All these people had their bamboo hats pushed down and followed at a suitable distance behind. They didn't want to reveal their faces and they didn't know what they planned to do. Could it be those people carrying the flags? Where are their flags? Yun Q muttered. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor still remained indifferent, and he paid no attention to the few hundred people behind him. When they reached Hidden Fog City, there was an arbor not far from the city gate. There were 2 elders selling tea under the arbor, 1 male and 1 female. When they walked over, those 2 elders raised their heads and greeted, "Dear guests, how about a cup of tea?" Monk Yun Q muttered, "Why should we drink the tea when we just took to the road?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I'm thirsty." Once he had said that, he sat down in the arbor and asked for a cup of tea. Qin Mu also sat down. Those two elders also sat down respectively. 4 people sat at 4 sides of the table, each having a cup of tea in front of him. Chen Wanyan, Yu Qinghong and the rest also wanted to go forward, but they noticed that they remained at the same spot no matter how much they moved forward. That arbor was very close to them, yet after dozens of steps, they still remained where they were. Everyone was astonished and sprinted towards the arbor in a hurry. Their speed was extremely fast, yet they were always yards away from the arbor. This arbor that looked close to them seemed to be 1,000 miles away. After a moment, Qin Mu, an Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, finished their tea. An Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor stood up to bow. That old man and old woman also stood up to bow. The two of them walked out of the arbor. An Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Let us go to Dashang." Everyone had a bewildered expression, but they still followed them. Yu Qinghong turned back to have a look and saw the few hundred weird people wearing bamboo hats didn't follow them. They had instead sat outside the arbor, each having a cup of tea in the hand and drinking it silently. It was a weird sight. "What a bunch of weird people," Hu Linga said. Cai Yunxiang came to Qin Mu's side and asked in a low voice, "Is it done?" Qin Mu nodded his head. "You will know then." When they came to the outskirts of Dashang city, there were barracks filled in the open space. Military camps were set up everywhere, and Duke Wei, Grand General who crowns the army, Grand General of Cherishing Transformation, were both here. They didn't invade Dashang immediately. Dashang was a strategic town of the southern borders where the rebel army from all over the world would gather, amassing thousands of soldiers and cavalries. There were also disciples from all sorts of sects rushing to this place in an endless stream, waiting for their moment to strike. If a war broke out, this would definitely go down as an epic and grand war in history. On the journey, Qin Mu saw golden armored strongmen pushing huge cloud carts and practicing attacking the city. These golden armored strongmen were experts that cultivated battle techniques and specially strengthened their corporeal bodies. Their bodies could swell up dozens to hundreds of times, turning them into giants. They were clad with armor formed from mysterious copper and mysterious gold. Just the thickness of the armor alone was half a feet. When these giants were practicing to attack the city, there were chains wrapped around their bodies and they had to carry shields as they pushed the cloud carts. Cloud carts were very complicated, and other than the huge iron hammers smashing the city gate, there were also flying cart ladders which could stretch over dozens of yards upwards. The ladders would lean against the city wall, allowing soldiers to climb up the city walls. Other than this, there were also soldiers executing formation diagrams, laying them out to allow the soldiers to stand on them, practicing their formation. There were also cavalries riding huge birds that dived down under the command of the generals. 10 over thousands of sword lights shot down, and with one swoop, over a hectare of land were filled with flying swords. After the cavalries had flown past, the flying swords whooshed up from the ground and flew one after another into the sword cases on their back. The flying cavalries came and went like wind and like lightning, making people unable to guard. There was not only a troop of cavalry, there were dozens of flying cavalries. The huge flying cavalries utilized the beehive tactics and pack-of-wolf tactics. Therefore, if the land troops were to meet the flying cavalries, it was simply a devastating blow. If they encountered strong enemies, the flying cavalries could execute the kite tactics to hang the enemies to death. Other than the flying cavalries, there were also flying ships. This time, Duke Wei and Grand General who crowns the army had mobilized several hundred ships, and each ship could carry 1,000 people, which means a huge army of a few 100,000 was mobilized. Imperial Preceptor's reform has indeed turned Eternal Peace Empire's army into an invincible army. If our heavenly devil cult was to receive such an attack, we will definitely be wiped out. Qin Mu thought to himself. When they came to the camp, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had a few words with Duke Wei, Grand General who crowns the army, and Grand General of Cherishing Transformation before leading Qin Mu and the rest towards Dashang city. There were flags of all kinds of sects hanging on Dashang city. There were even some flags of countries that were eradicated. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor took a look and shook his head. If this old generation isn't completely destroyed, how will we become great? They could keep coming back from the ashes and make a comeback. Blood must flow in a revolution and millions of heads will roll. Qin Mu asked, Imperial Preceptor, is it ready? It's ready. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor raised his head and the city gate opened wide. 2 rows of people walked over and lined up to the left and right of the city gate. The vital chi behind them turned into apparitions of God and devils. Strong practitioners of celestial being realm. Qin Mu composed himself. The strong practitioners of celestial being realm could already show apparitions of gods and devils. These 2 groups of strong practitioners of celestial being realm had already hit 60 to 70 people. The scene still isn't big enough. Yu Qinghong sighed and smiled. To test the scholars in this world, just the examination in Hall of Yang of our Imperial College alone would mobilize 99 strong practitioners of celestial being realm to test the scholars. For the rebels to only have such little strong practitioners of celestial being realm, it's not even enough for our Imperial College to kill. The dozens of strong practitioners of celestial being realm looked down towards their hearts and ignored her words. When they walked into the city gate, they saw 2 rows of strong practitioners of celestial being realm lined up on both sides of the long street. There was a person every 10 steps all the way to the center of the city. The end almost couldn't be seen and there was probably over 1,000 of them. Yu Qinghong's heart trembled violently and didn't dare to say a word. Qin Mu was still quite composed. Heavenly Devil Cult also had a few hundred of strong practitioners of celestial being realm, therefore, there was nothing for him to be surprised of. Not only the sects are involved in this revolt, even some countries that were already eradicated are involved. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor continued indifferently. Back then, to win the heart of people, I didn't kill every single one of the strong practitioners from these countries, which allowed them to rebel again. Other than the sects and countries, there are also some reputable families and the riots from these reputable families can't be underestimated. Qin Mu made some calculations. Above celestial being realm was life and death realm, and above life and death realm was divine bridge realm. Since there were so many strong practitioners of celestial being realm, this meant the numbers of strong practitioners of life and death realm weren't low and there will at least be 100 of them. Meanwhile, there would probably be over 12 strong practitioners of divine bridge realm. Over 12 people of the cult master level plus the strong practitioners from the hidden sacred grounds like Little Jade Capital. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was now literally sending his head to them to chop off. As for Qin Mu and the rest, they could just chop their heads off first and hang them around their waists. The strong practitioners on both sides of the path were solemn and made no sound. Only the footsteps of Qin Mu and the rest could be heard. Other than the divine arts practitioners of the rebels that were in the city, there was already no one else here. Not only that, there were actually no buildings in Dashang city. All the buildings were razed to the ground and even the foundations of the buildings were removed. The city was bare and only tens of thousands of soldiers were inside. They were in their formations and they were all silent as well, not saying a word as they looked at them. Walking under the gaze of tens of thousands of divine arts practitioners was extremely nerve-wracking. Even Chen Wanyun, who was used to war, was trembling, unable to control himself. Qin Mu had seen God before and even peed on the sculpture of God, so he was still undisturbed. He felt the pressure but he didn't lose his composure. The center of the city had also been renovated. The City Lord Manor had vanished without a trace and replacing it was a high platform that had a few thousand steps. The platform was dozens of yards away from the ground and was even taller than the city tower, looking like a small mountain. Qin Mu walked forward and his heart trembled slightly. The platform didn't look like a small mountain, it was a mountain. Some moved the entire mountain and placed it on the original spot of the City Lord Manor before sculpting it into the shape it was now. When they came to the bottom of the steps, they slowly walked up at a steady pace. Finally, when they came to the top of the mountain, they discovered the mountain peak had already been flattened. Majestic apparitions of gods and devils stood towering, yet all the masters of the sects were nowhere to be seen. Qin Mu looked closely and saw these sect masters were either standing on the palm of the gods and devils apparition or they were sitting in the heart of the gods and devils' brows. None of them were touching the floor. They were all high up in the sky, giving Qin Mu and the rest an immense pressure. These existences of the cult master level were simply too strong. There was a beautiful woman standing on the fingertips of a god's apparition, looking down at Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor from above. She said with a soft voice, "The number one man under gods, the Imperial Preceptor of the current dynasty, you actually didn't bring any helpers. This apparition of God had the appearance of a daoist. The apparition had a height of 300 yards and the eyes were snow-white as if they were made up of white-colored light. A huge snake coiled around his body and a black turtle was under his feet. A breeze blew over and the pennant behind his back fluttered in a light breeze. Cai Yunxiang saw this sight and her heart leaped slightly. The god that her vital chi had transformed into has been refined into a solid form, a realm which is near to God. Qin Mu wasn't too clear in this area and his heart wavered. He then asked, "Sister, if someone doesn't have his 4 limbs but when using the third eye to look at him, he is perfectly able and looks like an imposing and matchless god, giving off divine light that blinds people. How is this realm compared to this woman's realm?" Cai Yunxiang also didn't have much understanding of this and didn't reply. Suddenly, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor turned his head around and an uncontrollable aura burst forth. His desire for battle overflowed from his body. "You have seen such a person?" Qin Mu was shocked by the sudden outburst of his battle desire and said, "It's my elder." The corners of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's eyes twitched. "Your elder again? You seem to have a lot of elders." This video will end here.